Hello, fellow real estate enthusiasts. I'm Richard Montano, your host of The Loudest Silent Partner, the ultimate podcast for savvy investors who want to diversify their portfolio with passive investment opportunities. Join me as we unravel the secrets of successful real estate investing, where knowledge meets profit. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting, we've got insights, news, and inspiring stories you need. Let's turn the page on your real estate investment journey together. This is The Loudest Silent Partner, where your investments speak volumes. Miss Brittny, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been great. I'm so excited to have you because you and I have such great conversations.
We do.
About sometimes what people consider boring, like real estate. But I love it. I know you love it.
I do.
And it's been a pleasure working with you over the last, 3 years, 4 years?
I think it's been two.
2 years.
I think
Yeah.
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Feels like we've known each other a lot longer than that.
True.
Yeah. I think our relationship became a friendship pretty quickly because it was just like, we just like vibed and it was good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think as like, hardworking people who enjoy real estate, who are also like growing and learning, I think you and I have so much in common, and it's been easy to get to know each other. And then I think even like so much as like even working together has been easy.
Yeah.
I don't think we've ever had a fight. No?
No. Hopefully we never do.
No imaginary fights either. I can't think of any. Maybe you might have had some.
No. No imaginary fights. No fights in my head about you. No.
Oh,
Good.
Good. Well, so our audience here are passive investors. They're people who are trying to invest in deals with me or other people like me. And so it's just, we're trying to teach them, different components of, how the real estate business works. And so for this episode, I'd really like to talk about how you and I interact and like things that we've experienced together. And just what it's like to be a, real estate landlord and a property manager, and that those two people in a relationship. And so you've been our property manager for the last couple of years. And so your company is Bridge House.
Yep.
Bridge House or Bridge House?
Bridge House.
Bridge House.
Property managers, yes.
Spelled H-A-U-S.
H-A-U-S is in Sam, which is very important when you talk to people on the phone.
Right.
They think it's Bridge Hoff.
Hoff. Well, I was thinking about that, and I was like, how do I say Bridge House or Bridge House? Yeah.
Bridge House.
Bridge House.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, could you, tell us about, what you do at Bridge House and why you even started property management business? I'd love to know that.
Yeah. So why we? I say we because it's myself and I have 4 business partners. So we, about 3.5 years ago, I was leaving a job, my sister was leaving her job, and we started to invest in real estate and doing flips or doing buy and holds. So we bought this property in National City. It was a single family home where we turned it into a 4-plex, and we thought, okay, well, who's going to manage the property once it's all done? And I talked to a lot of people that I knew, a lot of real estate agents. The broker partner now, I talked to him and he was like, I honestly cannot look into the whites of your eyes and give you a straight answer about these people are awesome. You should talk to these property managers. I can guarantee they'll do a great job. No one could be that direct with me about it. So we talked about what we're going to do. And we thought, well, if there isn't the kind of property management excellence, I guess you could say, in the industry in San Diego, let's start our own. And I come from a background where I was a chief of staff for an executive in an international company. My job was to bring excellence and have everything done completely and by the book and provide a certain kind of service that I thought I could really translate well into property management. So we decided to just start Bridge House. And, our personal properties are a very small portion of the portfolio. I mean, we have 6 out of 300. So that's why we started, is to disrupt the industry, to bring the kind of service that we would expect and with the kind of integrity that we operate with to this space, and give property owners like you, investors like you, the kind of service that we would expect someone to give to us. So that's how we got started.
Got it. And that makes a big difference. And you're right. In this space, there's not a lot of good property managers.
Yeah.
It's really difficult. And you have sort of the institutional side, which are the big houses like that you're just a number, just, so there's no real connection and understanding of who we are as people in this space, because we are human beings operating in real estate, right?
Yes.
We're not just businesses or machines.
No.
So, in my experience, it was the same thing. We actually, years ago, we just did all of our property management in-house. And it worked for us because we wanted that higher level of service, and we couldn't find it. And, as we've seen, like even you look on the reviews and you see a lot of terrible reviews for property management companies out there, a lot. And I mean, there's two things with that. One is the property management company sucks. That's one. Yeah. And then second is property managers are, it's a thankless job. You're not, either you're doing the job and nobody says anything, or something once went wrong and somebody blasts you.
For sure. Yes. It always happens that way. I mean, we have pretty good reviews for, I think, Chloe will know who's coming next. She's marketing and sales, but I think we're like a 4.8 right now on Google.
Oh,
4.8, 4.7. But there are some, I mean, one of the bad reviews that we have are from, speaking of a crazy story, there was an owner who was a friend of ours who was like one of our first properties that we got. And he ended up relapsing, unfortunately, from like doing drugs, and he ended up taking a brick and throwing it into the window of two of his properties that he lived on site. And then,
oh my gosh.
And then kind of lost his mind. I got his mom involved. I talked to him. I talked to his mom. Like I care for the guy personally, because I know him personally and he was doing really well. But that's one of our bad reviews, is him saying that we owe him money, which we don't. I mean, I am talking about integrity. I did everything by the book, have accounting of every little thing, every security deposit transfer, everything. And he, he would just kind of lost his mind and gave us a bad review.
Right. I mean, speaking of humans, I mean, he's being human. I mean, unfortunately, he's having a tough time, or had a tough time.
Yeah. And I hope he's doing better.
Right.
Authentically.
I mean, that's a terrible thing to live with.
Yeah. Seriously.
We had a client, a similar story. We had a client once that we didn't do property management for outside clients. We just did our own stuff internally. Well, so this guy comes to us and says, "Hey, I've got these properties, and there are a couple single family and a couple duplexes." And so I said, "Yeah, we can help you. Like, you're a buddy." And similar situation. He actually something happened to him in his life and he relapsed. And then he actually moved into one of the units that tenants were living in.
Oh, no. With them there. Well, how did he do that?
Young family. So two little kids, husband and wife, in South Park. Very nice house, large house. So, there was space there. And he had a key.
Oh, my God.
So he goes in and says, "I have to stay here for a few days." And the tenant goes, okay, I don't know what to do. So the tenant calls me and says, "This guy is sleeping in their daughter's bedroom."
Whoa.
Wild story. What
ended up happening?
Yeah. So I ended up having to go in and
take him out.
Get him. Yeah. And he was a friend. And
sad.
I don't want to say it all worked out, because it obviously wasn't good for anybody in the situation, but it didn't end badly. So we got him out and everything was fine. The kids were safe, family's safe. But they didn't stay there much longer. They gave us notice not too long after that.
Right. I would too. My gosh, that hasn't happened to us. Thank goodness. I mean, we try to, we say you obviously can have a key to your property because you're the owner of the property. But if you don't want to have a key, some people are like, "I don't want to have a key to my property. I'm giving you all the keys." I'm like, I totally understand that. So then you cannot be implicated in anything that potentially could happen at the property.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's just the best way to handle it. And you never know. Like, somebody goes into your house or to your office, and then there's keys there. It's like it better be just like with one person, one entity, one space.
Yeah.
So we operate the same way there. It's been wild. But anyway, so it's good to hear that you came to the same place that we did, but now you've gone way beyond that.
Yeah.
Now you've grown. You've got over 300 properties in your portfolio. You guys have provided excellent service to us. We've been very happy with the work that you've done. And I have high standards. So, we had our property management company previously. And so we operated the way I thought we should operate,
Right.
very similar to what you mentioned. And so transitioning from that space, from our property management company to you, I was a little nervous.
Yeah.
Because I knew my systems. I created those systems.
Right.
Right. They were,
So that,
so
I can only imagine how hard that is. Because for me to just give something away to my staff is awesome. They are so great. It's a problem that I have, which is I'm going to give something to somebody and then empower them to do it the way that I would.
Right.
Which is something that I am constantly learning and to do.
Yeah.
Because there's a very particular way that I like to do things.
Yeah.
So I can imagine that was difficult for you to hand over your baby.
Yeah.
Your baby.
Oh, yeah.
Moss. I mean, like, that is... With everything they've told me about what you've gone through with that property, that is like a baby.
I'm going to do a whole episode on that property.
Oh, good.
Yeah, a whole episode. I mean,
you should. It's
I could write a book
insane. Yes.
About that property.
Yeah.
I mean, not to mention there being like a pandemic and other things that happened during the development of that project. But I mean, just so many things. And I will not derail this conversation to that because I could be stuck here for hours. But so handing it over. So like you said, transitioning from my old management company when we sold, took that to a different product type and then sold that company, and then moving my properties to you was was I was a little nervous, but you guys showed me that you could do it, and you guys did well. So for our audience, for the people listening, I think it's important for them to understand how I interact with you, and like what we kind of do together.
Yeah. So like, we're talking about a couple of horror stories. There's stories of like bad tenants that we've dealt with, one in particular. We don't have to talk about that one, but you and I we have to like ideate. We have to sometimes get on the phone and say like, what do we do here with this tenant? This tenant is doing, X, Y, Z. And do we call an attorney? Do we serve a notice? And, these things. So I lean a lot on you guys. Yeah.
Right. You have your internal staff, you have an on-site manager, then we have our counsel. So can you, as we talk about these things, you then go off and have conversations. So like with this one tenant that you and I have dealt with over the last couple of years, what are some of the like conversations you've had with like the attorneys, and let's, obviously we got to keep it,
confidential.
Yeah, to some degree.
Yes.
But yeah, so what's that like for you? So I talk to you, we ideate on like what to do with this tenant, and then you walk off and what happens?
Yeah. So, well, first, I think it's important for people to know who are investors who might have a property manager that for you to interact with me the way that you do is very empowering to me, because I never want to, and we never do, make decisions on owner's behalf. I don't ever want to assume that you want to evict somebody or we want to keep somebody. So having that conversation with you makes a difference so that I can take I can make some recommendations, take your thoughts, and actually go and execute on them to fulfill on what you want as the owner, because you are my client. So, like for example, with that one unit, by the way, they're very quiet right now.
That's great.
We haven't gotten any kind of anything from the on-site manager, anything from the tenants or the other tenants about them. So that's excellent. But, you'll tell me something and I'll go and I will investigate, what's going on. Like I'll have the on-site manager, I'll send her an email or call her and say, hey, what's going on with this property or this particular unit? We heard one day we got a call from some kind of dog adoption company who called us to find out if those tenants were allowed to adopt a dog. And I don't even think did I tell you about this? No. Okay. So, or maybe I can't remember, but I was like, we're not going to allow them to adopt a dog when they're already violating the lease in terms of noise ordinances and being disruptive to the entire community. I mean, I don't even know how many tenants on that property. So, I'll do some investigating and then determine, like right now, there's nothing to do at this point. I mean, there were things like when there was a noise issue contact the attorney and let them know, okay, this is now a recurring issue. What are our next steps? What are our options for legal action against these people? And once we serve them a note, it was the last notice we served them about the noise and the disruption to quiet enjoyment, which is every tenant's privilege to have. They stopped because they knew that the next action was to be evicted or asked to leave. And then if they don't, then lead to an eviction. So, with you and with other clients, I mean, I was at an event last night and I had the attorney call me and say, hey, this tenant who was supposed to be out on October 31st, she's being evicted, but she came to an agreement with the attorney, which is excellent. She needs 6 more days. But we talked to her. She's going to pay the per diem rent for those 6 days. She's also paying the back due rent. She's also paying $500 of attorney's fees. She's on a payment plan.
Wow.
We need to know if you're willing to let her stay for another 6 days. So I hang up, text the owner, hey, are you aligned with this? I recommend we go with this because technically this girl can stay in that property until we get a sheriff lockout.
Right.
Which could be 3 months from now.
Yep.
We don't want her to know that. And so I recommend we go with this. And he just texted me a thumbs up and then I called the attorney and that was done. So it's always a collaboration with the owner on what we're going to do. And I never assume that what I would do is what the owner would do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That it hits the nail on the head with what I was trying to convey, which is as a syndicator or a real estate sponsor, I have investors with me.
Yeah.
And in essence, I operate as the landlord. Now, I may own the property 100% by myself, or I may own it with investors behind me. But in essence, I am the landlord.
Yeah.
And you are the property manager. So I work with you. I make strategic decisions. I make some of the heavier decisions that are outside of normal operations.
Yeah.
And then you, as the property manager, you deal with the tenants. You're the one on the ground. You're the eyes and ears. You're making sure everything's operating the machine. You're the mechanic, right? You're saying, okay, everything is operating the way it should be. And then something goes out of whack, then you come and talk to me. So I think in my space, sometimes there's what people perceive as a gray area. They don't really understand the difference between the two of us. And so this is a good example of that, where you're communicating with the attorney about the tenant.
Yes.
Right. You get a solution, right? And then you come back and say, hey, Rich, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Now, we can also go back into okay, so you pay bills, right?
Yeah.
You're paying bills for the property. You're handling the typical operations. So that's all fine and dandy as well. We do have, for any unusual expenses, you can reach out to me. But we have in our contract, and I forget what it is, but you have a certain allowance.
Yes.
You can say, if it doesn't go over this amount, I can do it. So what is that? And
the maintenance reserve. That's so important. For so many different reasons. So I can't remember what exactly ours is. I have to look.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But typically, I mean, you have, we manage a 16-unit building for you. We manage everything from 1-unit condos to right now we have our largest one is 18 units. So why the maintenance reserve is important. Typically, we request, if it's a single-family home or maybe a duplex, $500 maintenance reserve minimum. Some people want a $1,500 maintenance reserve. What that determines is anything under, like you said, anything under the maintenance reserve amount, we will go ahead and handle it without contacting the owner. We're just, snake a toilet,
right?
Whatever that might be. If it's over the maintenance reserve, we always contact the owner to get an approval. Why that's so, and my maintenance team is super clear on that, and they do not violate that. There was one owner who came to us from a different property management company who had a remediation issue. She got charged $4,000 and the property manager never called her.
Wow.
The next month she got her owner statement and there was a $4,000 charge for remediation. And I just can't fathom doing that. I talked to the weirdest thing is that I went to the office to pick up the keys and some other paperwork from the property manager when the transition was happening to us. And the guy was justified in doing that. And I can't remember exactly what his justification was, but I just smiled and nodded and was just like, okay, but we would never do something like that.
Yeah.
But ultimately, these are your funds.
Right.
These are the owner's funds.
Yeah.
These are the rents. If something has to happen, fine. But to have a surprise on an owner statement like that is, for me, completely unacceptable.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the outcome could have been the same,
Exactly.
right? You could have called me and
Exactly.
said, "Hey, we've got to do this remediation issue. It's $4,000. We got to
do it.
And here's a bunch of reasons why." And I go, 100%, I agree.
Yes.
Let's go.
Yes.
But now in my mind, I can plan and prepare because typically I'm going to get a certain amount of proceeds every month from this asset.
Yes.
And I have things in my life that I'm preparing for in my business or in other things, expecting that $4,000 to show up.
Yeah. For some people, it's, I need that $4,000 to pay the mortgage.
Right.
So now what do I do about paying my mortgage?
Yeah.
So that's incredibly important to us. There was one other thing I wanted to say about that.
Well, through that. So question, is it a big company? The property management company? Is it one of those bigger institutionalized, or is it a small shop?
Well, it was smaller. They also, which is actually a good point, they also sell real estate. So we don't.
Yeah.
All we do is property management.
Yeah.
If an owner wants to sell their piece of property and they don't have an agent, I can refer them to my broker partner's business. And if they want to, explore doing business with my broker partner, that's fine.
Right. But
we do not do sales. So, and also, I mean, if there's any real estate agents that are listening to this podcast, if anybody were to come to us by way of a real estate agent and they want to sell their property at some point, we always send it back to the agent because we are very serious about our relationships with agents. We have a lot of agent referrals. So that's important to us.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge because, there's a conflict of interest there with, if like this guy, let's just say, for example, is he corralling future sales? Right? Is he like just kind of making sure that everybody stays in this stable so that when they're ready to sell, he can be the agent?
It's possible.
Right? And so that secondarily, he's doing the property management, right? Which is, and I've actually seen that.
A lot of agents do that. A lot of agents will start out doing property management as a favor for an owner who bought a place with them, and then they're like, we need a tenant in here, and the agent will go ahead and find the tenant and then start property management, and all of a sudden they have like 15 properties that they're managing, and their boss, their broker is telling them, why are you doing this?
Right.
Where we actually had, it happened with one agent who, he's a broker. He's pretty big in the industry, and he had 40 properties under his management but his main job was to be a broker. He had like 10 agents working under him. And at some point 2.5 years ago, he said, I do not want to manage properties anymore. And we acquired his business. So he had 40 properties to transition with 40 different owners. Maybe it was like 38 different owners.
Wow.
He transitioned 38 owners, tenants, properties into our system over a 1.5-month period.
Wow. And
then the only reason why some of them dropped off, some of them wanted to sell, but it was of no reason in terms of our services. There's this woman yesterday who I was talking to who is an owner. She said to me, she was so sweet. She said, do you have a property management company in Maryland? Like, are you guys going to come over here? And I was like, no, maybe one day, but not right now. And she said, oh gosh, because I was thinking we should open a property management company. And I love the way Brittny does stuff. So I was like, maybe you'll open a property management company with me. And I was like, that's like the biggest compliment an owner can give me. It's like, not only do they appreciate what I do with them, but that now they want to do business with me. Yeah. So.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I think that's important that you one of the things I love about you is like, you enjoy that.
Yes.
Right. You enjoy a happy client. You enjoy a successful system, or you that's great because your kudos comes from the results of your work.
Yes.
As opposed to the money or
100%
some other thing that like this other broker, maybe like a sale, a future sale. Your joy and fulfillment comes from the actual success.
Yes.
And that's important to me because I have I have trust issues. I have trust issues with people who do things only with the money in mind.
Yeah.
Right. Where they're only focused on the money. And it's like, at some point, if you don't really love what you're doing, you're going to do something that's probably not going to be in my best interest.
Right. Well, I also think, like you were saying earlier, that everybody is a human being. So if my eye is on the money only, I lose sight of like, you're a human being.
Yeah.
You have all of these concerns that I can't even see, but I can only imagine. The tenant is a human being who's living in one of the properties that I'm managing, and they have a whole world. They have a family living there. Maybe they have a dog. I mean, if I were to take my eye off of the well-being of my clients and my tenants and the fulfillment that I get out of things going well and only have my mind on the money, I mean, I should just quit.
Yeah.
Because I would end up being like a lot of other property managers.
Right.
And that's not what I'm here for.
You would get burnt out. You would, compromise certain decisions. You would start to provide a bad, customer service. I mean, just overall, it'd just be bad.
With a lot less integrity.
Right.
Which in turn impacts my relationship with myself. Like if I'm doing shady stuff, like I just, that's one of the biggest things for myself is I do, to the best of my ability, operate with the utmost integrity to not only honor my relationship with you as an owner, my relationship with the tenants, but ultimately honor my relationship with myself.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, you're the one who has to see yourself every day. Yeah.
Yeah. And when things go wrong, it is devastating to me, for sure. Even if it's a small thing. Like when we first started Bridge House, one thing would go wrong, and it wasn't even like that big of a deal. And and I would be so messed up about it. And one of my business partners would be like, listen, this is business.
Right.
It's okay. I'm like, but it's not okay. Oh, yeah. Or an email would take me like 30 minutes to write because I'm like, okay, the period's got to be there. No, there's got to be a comma. Does this make sense? I need to rewrite this. And so, I mean, it's just, it's important. Period. Integrity is important, period.
Yeah. 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 100%. There's the 4 agreements, right? One of them is don't take things personally.
Yes.
And when it's something that you have a lot of passion for, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
Right. So if your work is your passion, which for me was really providing income opportunities for real estate investors, and there's a whole family, dynamic here that brought me to that place, right? But I do have a lot of passion. I do, and I have a lot of love, and that passion it transfers to your work, and it's like I get excited. I go share with my clients and tell them about what I'm working on, and they're like, Rich, like you're so confident, you're so excited, like your desire to be successful is what gains a lot of trust for them.
Yeah.
Because what I was trying to say earlier was that taking things personal is
the 4, what were you saying?
Yeah, the 4 agreements, like don't take it personal. So, when you're passionate about something and a mistake happens or a small failure even, you take it so personal that you're like, I mean, for me, I would not sleep for days.
Oh yeah. There's been things like that for me. Yeah. I wake up with it. I go to sleep with it until it's fully resolved. I live with something that is not working out the way I want it to every single second of the day.
Yeah. I'm in the middle of a transaction right now that is, it could go a couple different ways and it's going to benefit my investors in a big way.
Yeah.
Or it might be kind of neutral. It's not going to be bad. Okay. So that's the good news.
Thank God. Yeah.
But still the neutral is like somewhat of a failure to me, right? So I look at this situation, I'm worried that if we don't do something great, then it's not a success.
Yeah.
Because I've been so passionate about it. So, and I want to create this thing and it should go well. But if it doesn't go well, it just goes fine, the F word, then I feel like it's a failure in a sense.
Yeah.
And I have a hard time with that, being passionate and then driving down to something that looks like a failure to me, even though everybody around might be like, that's great. High five. Let's go. You can't go broke making a profit. Let's do it.
Right.
Right. But to me, I'm like, shoot, we only made 6% or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's tough. So you kind of touched on something earlier, how you're handling expenses and whatnot. So, so again, we're trying to separate, where's the property manager? What are you doing? And so you handle all of the expenses. You're paying for property taxes even, right? Potentially.
But usually we have the owner handle property taxes.
And I do.
Yeah.
I typically handle my own as well.
Yeah. We don't handle, I don't think there's anybody in the portfolio that we handle their property taxes. We do handle for certain people like you, paying the mortgage.
Yeah. Mortgage. Yeah.
Mortgage maintenance items.
Yep.
We pay for ongoing, we pay for like incoming maintenance requests and whatnot that the tenants send us, but then we also pay for, you don't have an HOA, but HOA dues, landscaping, if the fire extinguishers need to be serviced, if there's a backflow that needs to be done. I mean, everything that's related to the property. Why that's so important is because all those expenses will show up on the cash flow report at the end of the year. So somebody like you, who's an owner, you can take that, you can look at the cash flow report, and all maintenance items will be outlined for the year in terms of the cost of it.
Right.
And so the more we can put on the owner statement, the less, or the cash flow report, the less you or other owners have to go like looking for, wait, how much should we pay for pest control?
Right.
Which I know one owner is paying for his own pest control. And I'm like, okay, well, you can do that, but then it's not all in a nice little package at the end of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a couple of line items that go on after you guys are done. So we get a cash flow statement from you guys, which we get those monthly. Yeah. Which is great because we're able to track very well what's going on. We put all that in QuickBooks, and then we add the couple of extra line items that we take care of. So like you said, like property taxes, there's an asset management fee, which goes to me as the landlord. That's also a separate line item. Yeah. And it goes on there. And so it's pretty straightforward, but I think it's just really important for investors who understand, what's actually going into that, because we've had investors come back and say, well, do we have to give you money to pay for the property taxes? Right. And I say, guys, you whatever I give you is done. Like you've made, that's your profit, those are your proceeds, you can move on. And it's been really interesting to see like how that plays out with different investors. But what's important for me and you, for our listeners, is it is probably the most important relationship for the investment. Because if we didn't have a great relationship, or if you weren't doing a good job at the property, forget if I'm not doing a good job. If you're not doing a good job, the property is going to have problems. Yes, like it is major problems. And if we had a property, just kind of segueing back into like some of these horror stories. We had a property where the property manager was not communicating with the tenant that was having issues. And this tenant was seemingly innocent at first, saying like, hey, there's dirt on the floor, in the hallways from your construction guys. Or, hey, I smell some trash in the trash can from 3 stories below, and there's communication issues. And he filed a lawsuit, right? At some point, if you're not communicating well, the tenant is going to lose it. Yeah, that is for sure. Right. And so it's like, so not only, and I appreciate you reiterating what I said about us all being humans, is that you have to understand, you're interacting with that person. You have to see what's actually happening and transpiring for them as a human being. Yes. I'm removed from that. Yeah. So I don't know what's going on with the tenant. And you need to be able to convey that to me. Like, hey, they're going through this thing. They're going through, a divorce. Yeah, maybe they lost their job, which happens. I mean, a couple times it happened last year with a couple tenants. One of the one who is actually supposed to moved out on the 31st, we gave her 6 more days. She lost her job. And I think it's important. I mean, I don't know if any tenants are listening, but I think it's important for tenants to also be in communication with us. Because if we don't know what's going on and you're not forthright about it, then we can't help you. Right. Like, we are not the kind of property managers that are like, you don't pay your rent, pay or quit. Right. If you're in communication with us. Yeah. If you're not in communication with us, you don't pay your rent by the 5th, you're going to get a pay or quit on the 6th. And then if you don't pay in 3 days, you're going to the attorney. Right. Because we have to be very diligent about our process, or else tenants will try to get away with things. And I think that's important also to note as a property owner, if you're doing your own property management, tenants and the tenant's talking to you, the tenant is going to pull on your heartstrings if they can, and if you allow them to. And I know, because if this wasn't my business, I would be the same way. I'd be like, okay, well, let's just give them a couple more days or this and that. And like, maybe they're telling the truth. But I have this is my business. I'm protecting other people's assets. So things go the way that they go. And yes, I'm very empathetic when it comes to people's life and what they're dealing with. But at the same time, you have to pay your rent. Yeah. I mean, you signed a contract. This is legally bound. I mean, sorry. Yeah. Right. So. Yeah. Well, I think you do a great job of balancing those two, the business and the humanistic elements of it because we have to live in this world together.
Yes.
It makes a lot of sense. And that's one of the reasons why, once you and I got to know each other better, I was like, absolutely, let's rock and roll and do this together. So
yeah, thank you.
You've been so awesome with us and we appreciate you. And I hope, our listeners, if they have questions and they can go directly to you.
Yes.
Or, to me to get to you.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I feel like we could have talked for another, it's been 30 minutes.
Oh my gosh. We have so much more to talk about. You're coming back.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Rich.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.